Welcome to Ancient Geeks, a podcast in which two friends of a certain age journey back to when we discovered all the geekiness there was, when geek culture was still on the fringes before it became mainstream. We were geeks before it was chic. I'm your co-host, Tom Grant, and you and I are very much alike, Dr. Taylor.
Well, I'm your co-host, Stephen Taylor, and I would say beware of bad dates.
Yeah, always.
Always.
So if it's not obvious, we're talking about Raiders of the Lost Ark here. Not Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, because that's not the title of the movie.
That's against Tom's religion to rename the movies.
It's still Star Wars in my head. It's not A New Hope.
Welcome to Grumpy Geeks.
Welcome to Grumpy Old Men Yell at Clouds. Okay, so before we get started, what geeky things have you been doing lately that are worth mentioning?
So, yeah, I mean, I kind of like, I think it's last week I mentioned, so not only have I been listening to The Greatest Generation talk about TNG, but I've been listening to their other podcast, The Greatest Trek, talk about TOS, and I'm reminded how great season 1 of TOS was. Just amazingly good. Maybe somebody to revisit at some point. But otherwise, there's some Substack stuff I'm working on. I always say that, and sometimes I don't produce it. There are notes. They exist. Well, see.
You write a lot elsewhere, so you're definitely forgiven.
I keep occupied, yeah.
Yeah, but you still have to perform contrition.
Sure, why not?
Yeah. All right. So what I've been doing lately, I've been reading Marvel Fanfare. So Marvel Fanfare was a great sort of anthology comic book where they would really just kind of like drop in stories that people wanted to do that were not tied to the current continuity in another title. So it started out with a real great series that had Spider-Man, Kazar, the Angel, and then the rest of the X-Men. They were in the Savage Land. There were some Savage Land villains there that were very familiar. The first couple of issues had Mike Golden penciling the art, who I always liked Mike Golden a lot.
Yes, me too.
So that was really fun. And then they would do also like an A story like the one I just described, and then a B story after that. And often it featured minor characters in the Marvel Universe or somebody you were very familiar with, but kind of shown in an interesting, different light. And there was one, for example, where Mr. Fantastic of the Fantastic Four has to take on Annihilus on his own. And Annihilus comes from another universe. He's responsible for mass genocide.
With a name like Annihilus, his parents set him up for failure.
I know, definitely. And he's
like Oral Roberts.
He looked like an Annihilus. So anyway, but Mr. Fantastic, by virtue of his genius, is able to outwit Annihilus and send him back to the negative zone. And these are just fun, And we've gone on and on about how contemporary comics are very hard to get into. This was a nice drop in. Of course, you need to know a little bit about the characters in order to enjoy these comics, but not a ton.
Right.
And it was also kind of fun whenever I was buying this on the newsstand. You didn't know who was going to be in the next issue.
No, Marvel Panther was also the early adoption of the fancy paper. It's one of the first ones, I think, with the heavier cover and the fancy paper.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah.
And like there was a character from the 70s, Deathlock, who it was a cyborg who was around for a while and then disappeared. I really liked him as a character. Eventually, he showed up again in the Marvel continuity, but at the time Marvel Fanfare was being published in the late 80s, early 90s. Yeah, he wasn't around. But then there was like a B story with Deathlock in there. So
yeah, I think part of it was some stuff they had sitting around.
That's definitely true. Like if they needed to drop something in. Yeah.
It was kind of nice, but it was that George Perez stuff, but it was had been sitting around apparently for years before they found some place to put it. They used to have more books like that, right? That had these sort of
astonishing tales, amazing adventures. I like that.
In the 80s, this was the only one that I can remember.
Yeah, Amazing Adventures, I think, had the Neil Adams drawn Inhumans stories. I talk about characters who are not given much of a stage normally in Marvel Comics to have their own story and then drawn by a fantastic artist like Neil Adams. It's great. All right. Instead of asking the typical question, what soundtrack song would you like? And we just like pick anything out of the
Right.
known universe. For this movie, in which the soundtrack is so important, it's so iconic, what one piece of music from the Raiders soundtrack would you choose as the soundtrack for this episode?
Well, I've got bad news and good news. The bad news is I didn't
Okay.
read your question, so I didn't act, but the good news is I did it anyway.
Okay. All right. What did you
I just
choose?
totally glommed over the question. It's right there. It's in red, even in bold.
I know.
I picked the
I
map
feel
room
ignored.
dawn.
I really, really feel
Well,
ignored.
it's
All right. Sorry,
it's only fair.
I stepped on
No,
your
no, the map room
reveal.
dawn. That's the
Uh-huh.
song. And this is a fantastic soundtrack. We'll talk about it more later.
Hmm.
That scene where he, crawls into the map room with the staff and he has the headpiece and then waits for the sun.
Hmm.
He's in there by himself, and it's a wordless scene, and the music along with the visuals is just amazing, and that music sticks in my head too. So that's the one I'll take.
Okay. So I would pick the Desert Chase,
Hmm.
which I was watching the movie, and it's a riveting movie, no matter how many times you've seen it.
Yeah, it is.
And I thought I might get away with there was some like little tiny thing I needed to do on my iPad while I was watching the movie related to a trip I'm taking, and I just had to put it down because this music was playing.
Hmm.
And it's like almost like yelling at me, "Why, you fool, did you take your eyes
Well,
off the screen for a second?"
I was going to call you a fool for watching on your iPad. You should have watched on the big TV
No,
with the
no, no, no.
music.
I did watch the video.
Okay.
I was diddling
Oh, I
around
see. I see.
with
Okay.
trip related
The
activities on the
iPad
iPad.
was the distraction. I got you. Okay. I
Yes,
was
it
afraid you were
always is the
watching it on your
distraction.
iPad. Yeah,
Yes, yes.
yeah. Okay. I forgive you.
Okay. So we're talking about Raiders of the Lost Ark, 1981. We're not going to do a lot of behind the scenes sorts of coverage because there's a lot of that out there. Podcasts, YouTube videos, books, you name it. Instead, we're going to focus on what is the mission of this podcast. What was it like when we first encountered it? What impact did it have on geek culture, on general popular culture? This is one of those biggies that broke
Yes.
way out of the small orbit of geek culture. Talk about its importance today. Well, do maybe the occasional behind the scenes thing, but also what we're going to do is provide some context from a geek perspective about where this movie came from. Sound like reasonable ground rules to you?
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. No, and that's perfect. Of course.
All right. So the context is there were three things I think that were important to both Lucas and Spielberg in making this movie that they were paying homage to, or they were drawing inspiration from. And so they are the pulps, the pulp magazines, the serials
Hmm.
in the movies, and also old time radio, by which we mean pre-television radio drama.
Right.
All of these are really important as understanding what was in the heads of Lucas and Spielberg when they made this movie. So first, the pulps, because they're important for everything we talk about practically. Science fiction, fantasy, comic books, a lot of the movies we talk about. There are definite, deep roots into these low-cost publications of the 30s and 40s that, as the name implies, pulps, cheaply
Right.
printed. Not the best paper, unlike the Marvel fanfare
Right. That's right.
quality paper. But these were magazines that were intended to be full of very exciting stories, engaging to a wide audience. They played on particular genres, so and they had great covers. So you always knew what you were getting into with one of these pulp magazines just by looking at the cover and seeing the name of the magazine. So, for example, high adventure stories like Raiders of the Lost Ark. There were magazines called Argosy and Adventure. And they would have these painted covers, of somebody, trying to parachute out of a burning biplane or hacking their way through the jungle, and a snake is about to attack them. There was a lot of weird fiction. I think probably the most familiar pulp to people who don't know a lot about pulps, but they've heard of this one, is Weird Tales. That's where people like Robert E. Howard
Hmm.
and H.P. Lovecraft and others were published. But there was also Strange Tales, Famous Fantastic Mysteries. Some of the covers on these are great, and when I like posting artists who did covers for magazines and books on our Substack, and I've got a couple queued up that come from Weird Tales. Uh, Artists like Hannes Bach or an interior artist, Virgil Finlay. Science fiction, weird fiction was sort of a blend of horror, fantasy, and science fiction. Science fiction exclusively, Amazing Stories. Again, that's probably one of the most famous of the science fiction pulps. Thrilling Wonder Stories. How can you not pick up something called Thrilling Wonder Stories, as opposed to very
Unthrilling, tepid, yeah,
tepid Wonder
boring
Stories?
stories.
Yes, and Captain Future, which was I think what most closely resembled space opera
Hmm.
in sort of the cliche stereotypical version of it. Uh, a mystery, Black Mask, where a lot of big name writers were published, like Dashiell Hammett and Raymond Chandler. Thrilling detective, an interesting pulpy genre unto its own. I wrote them down as heroic tales
Hmm.
because they're not really weird tales or science fiction. They're probably closest to mystery in some cases, but like Doc Savage,
Hmm.
the omnicompetent guy and his crew fighting all sorts of really sort of bizarre adversaries and in strange situations. The Shadow, the
Hmm.
Spider,
Hmm.
and there are plenty of other genres too. Westerns, war stories. There was even sort of like a borderline pornographic version of the pulps called spicy pulps. So they were
Spicy.
spicy. So there were spicy westerns and spicy mysteries and so forth. And I've mentioned some of the names of authors who either got their start in the pulps or really sustained their careers by publishing in them while they were writing for other venues as well. So Raymond Chandler, Dashiell Hammett, H.P. Lovecraft, Robert E. Howard, Lee Brackett, Jack Williamson, C.L. Moore, Clark Ashton Smith, Frederick Brown, Earl Stanley Gardner, Fritz Leiber, Jack Vance. That's a small sampling of the
Right.
sort of talent that appeared in the pages of these magazines. And again, the magazines were written to appeal to a broad audience,
Hmm.
who were looking for, engaging stories of adventure or mystery or horror or whatever, and they got their money's worth for,
Right.
not very much money. And if there's a book anybody wants to find out about the history of the pulps, a good starter is Ron Goulart's Cheap Thrills. It's one of these coffee table books, and I think in this particular case, because of the covers and the interior illustrations, which were such a big part of the pulp experience, it's a good one to get. Where like if it were just purely print, I don't think it would necessarily evoke the pulps the way that Goulart's book does. All right, so that's my quick introduction to the pulps. When Raiders premiered, we were talking before,
Hmm.
you really hadn't had experience with the pulps. You heard about all these writers, certainly, but
Right.
you hadn't had experience with the pulps themselves.
I think I was vaguely aware of this thing. I mean, really, I mean, isn't the heyday of the pulps basically like the 40s or the 30s or something like that? I
Yeah,
mean, what?
yeah.
So to a 12-year-old about to turn 13, that was ancient history. I think I knew I'd read some of these authors by this point in time. I know I'd read Fritz
Hmm.
Leiber. I'm sure I'd read Robert E. Howard, and some of the other stuff I was aware of. I kind of knew this was a vague part of the history, sort of Lucas's interest in and Spielberg's interest in filmmaking. But it just to me was like vague background material. If you'd asked me what a pulp was in 1981, I'm not sure I would have
Hmm.
said, "Isn't that orange juice concentrate?" Um, so I don't know that I would have
Yes,
known.
and
Yeah, I think it would have had a vague. I have a vague sense of all of this. I knew the Shadow. Um,
yeah.
but I didn't, and Duck Savage roughly, but none of this was like stuff that I would have been able to cite chapter and verse on. How
Well,
about yourself?
it certainly wasn't widely available. Like you
No,
couldn't get easily the pulps themselves unless you knew about them and went to go find them at a convention or
right,
a very niche
right,
bookstore.
right.
You could find certainly like the Doc Savage
Sure.
novels
I remember
by
seeing them. I
Kenneth
never read them.
Robison. Yeah, there were lots of stories from these that were anthologized
Hmm.
elsewhere.
Sure.
Even if you didn't know that they were originally printed in the pages of the pulps. If you had a choice of these pulps to read,
Right.
which one would you read? Would you read Adventure, Weird Tales, Amazing Stories, Black Mask, or Spicy Mysteries?
The one that Amazing Stories is what hits me the best.
Okay, so you're at the newsstand, you see
Yeah,
this,
sure.
the racks, and that's the one that
I
you pick out.
I know you're doing Spicy Mysteries.
Of course, why would you not? See, you would what you would do. See, I'm honest with myself. I I would brazenly buy Spicy Mysteries. You would
Sure.
like slip it under Amazing
Sure.
Stories, and
Of
it's like, oh,
course.
I'll take these two.
That's right. That's right.
I
But no,
kid,
I
I
think
kid.
I know. I think, and this is gonna, I think, fit
Yeah.
into the next series of conversations. I think that this is an interesting the aspect of this about again the central mission we're talking about as kids how do we encounter this stuff.
Hmm.
It's like it was possible to have a vague sense that stuff existed before and maybe
Right.
have some exposure to some of like Robert E. Howard
Hmm.
or H.P. Lovecraft was available in ways that maybe some other stuff wasn't. But you couldn't do what we can do now, which is sit here at our desks and either find all of it somewhere or buy all of it somewhere
Right.
and have access to it within a week at worst,
I
right?
know.
And so it was like this, maybe again, it gets back to that whole thing about treasure hunting in bookstores and or just sort of libraries, sometimes finding things, but it's always little pieces of the puzzle at best,
Right.
or a knowledge that there was a puzzle somewhere you could put together if you really wanted to. But
Right.
it was a different kind of experience than it is now.
Yeah. And I would have mentioned not only are these pulps available now in electronic versions, not necessarily easily or always through legitimate means, but
But they use
you
cheap
can find
electrons
them.
to hold them together so they don't
Exactly.
cohere.
Exactly. Well said. But there are also, like legitimate anthologies of
Yeah,
like the best of
sure.
Black Mask magazine, which I read through, which is terrific. Weird Tales. There are
Hmm.
anthologies of those. But there are people today who are doing something called the pulp revival, which is publishing these kinds of stories in print and electronic formats, and they're terrific. I mean, it's like again, we talked about anthologies in an earlier
Hmm.
episode. Not every story is great, but you'll find some really terrific ones in there, and the devotion to recreating a medium of exciting, intriguing, thought-provoking stories, I think that commitment is just to be commended.
Hmm.
Okay, so next up are the serials, and I think when people talk about the roots of Raiders, they most often talk about the serials.
Sure.
So these were short features that were shown in theaters before the main attraction
Hmm.
played at your local Odeum or uh, whatever kind of theater it was. And these were stories with lots of action, though there were more in dangerous situations than people trying to kill each other. I mean, occasionally you would get sort of the perils of Pauline, like death trap situation that somebody found themselves in, but often it was just, that they are going down in a burning airplane, or they're on a train that's about to run off the tracks
Right.
into a crevasse, or something like that. They ended on cliffhangers, putting the heroes in jeopardy, so that you would come back the next week and
Right.
see the next chapter, and then also see the movie that's playing with it. So you got
Right.
a twofer there, but also the theater owners had a hook to get people into seats through the serials, trying to see what was going to happen next to whoever the star of the serial was. There was a lot of science fiction and weird fiction in the serials. It was almost the norm at that time. I would say it is the norm, was the norm at the time. And they often adapted comics, including famous comic strips.
Hmm.
So Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon, another serial, The Phantom Empire, which had some science fiction-y or weird fiction-y elements in it. The Phantom Creeps. There was a Batman and Robin serial, Dick Tracy, Captain Marvel, Captain America. My favorite name, The Mysterious Dr. Satan.
Well, there you go.
I don't know which part of it is mysterious. Is where did he get his medical degree, or why the Satan part in
It's
his name?
probably a PhD, not an MD.
Oh, there you go. There you go. But then he's not Professor Satan. What's going on there? Did he get kicked out?
I mean, he got
Of the
tenure.
university.
I don't know.
He got tenure. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know.
Had you seen any serials?
So none of the ones you've listed. The only serial that I saw as a kid, not knowing necessarily what it was the Lone Ranger. That's the one that
Yeah.
was on reruns as a kid, and was really into Lone Ranger when I was very young.
Okay. I I have to say this is where film students at USC certainly had an advantage, I think, in
Hmm.
being in a community of people where they had access to the reels for these
Sure.
serials. Because, like, most people wouldn't have any opportunity to see them. I happen to because I would go to science fiction conventions, and occasionally there
Hmm.
would be a marathon showing of them, and I would sit down and watch all the Flash Gordon serials back to back.
Hmm.
Or another buttbuster experience was all the Buck Rogers serials back to back.
Hmm.
Uh, but otherwise, most people wouldn't have had any reasonable opportunity
Right.
to, even though they existed, let alone see them.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
And then last of
Again,
all, yeah, go ahead.
no, it's just kind of like I was saying before. It was just this thing that I know existed vaguely. And it certainly informed a lot of pop culture that I did consume, right? I mean, some of the stuff makes its way into the Looney Tunes, for example, right?
Right.
So what I knew about any of this stuff was that kind of like somewhat secondary reference
Hmm.
to the existence of these things, right?
Oh, that's an
Or
excellent
maybe,
point. Yeah. Yeah.
or maybe seeing something in a book or something. Like I don't know when it was I realized that there had been a Batman and a Superman serial back in the day, but it was something I learned like probably in print, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine like all these picture, heavy books that I
Yeah,
bought, like about science fiction movies or whatever might have had a picture of Buck Rogers in them, and I
yeah.
thought probably at the time that's interesting. I'll never see that.
Right. Or maybe read an article in Starlog about the Buck Rogers TV show, and there was a still from the Buster Crab thing, or was that
Yeah.
Flash Gordon? Whoever it was. I apologize for getting that wrong. But anyway, or I might ask my mother if she remembered or was aware of these things. We
Yeah.
might have as a kid seen some of them because my grandfather was a big movie buff or whatever. But I mean, that's as far as it goes. Again, it
Right.
was some kind of ancient history thing that maybe, you know, the cereals, the pulps, and King Tut. That was all like back then somewhere,
Right.
buried somewhere. And there
Yeah.
you go.
And if it wasn't clear from our description, these were the same sort of stories in the serials that were in the pulps often. So
Hmm. Oh
thrilling
yeah,
tales of adventure.
sure.
And the third
Daring do.
medium, daring do or daring don't. You decide. All right. So the last of the thrilling adventure media from the same time period, the 30s, 40s into the 50s, were radio dramas,
Hmm.
which often adapted the pulps and comics to this format.
Hmm.
These were again very action oriented, sometimes with cliffhangers if it were a serialized story. They were also very episodic.
Hmm.
So you would have, in a half-hour radio drama, a full story, maybe with the same recurring hero in them. Very pulpy. Kind of the most famous example is the Shadow,
Hmm.
but also the Lone Ranger. X
Yes.
minus one was a science fiction story, uh, radio sh- dr- science fiction story radio drama. Captain Midnight, sort of a superhero-ish character. The Adventures of Superman were on the radio. The special effects were great on that, by the way. You could believe a man could fly just by hearing the whoosh.
Whoosh, the whoosh.
Whoosh, Gunsmoke before it was a TV show
Yeah, 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 yeah.
was a radio drama. Suspense, as the announcer would say it. Again, sort of thrillers as the genre for that particular show. Inner Sanctum. Did you hear any of these?
I don't think I've ever heard any of them. I mean, I'm well aware that the shadow knows, the shadow knows
Yeah.
what evil lurks in the hearts of men. Um, and again, I think I got a lot of these references from other pop culture, if I
Yes.
had them, right?
Yeah.
I think the first time I saw the shadow was he was featured in an issue of Batman back in the 70s.
Yeah, because he had a short run comic series and
Yeah,
he cameoed in
yeah.
Batman.
And then, again, that quotation is somewhere in my brain from way back when. But I had, I was as we talked about in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy episode, I was a fan of radio drama, but it was more contemporary. Now, the closest I could come, actually, which I don't think you ever listened to, the Jack Flanders adventures were, I think, very much based on this
Hmm.
kind of serialized adventure stories.
Right.
But I mean, I've heard snippets, I think, over time. But in my recollection, I don't know that it was ever on any radio station that I had access to. I knew you used to could buy some of these on cassette tape, but that was
Yes.
kind of prohibitive to buy a bunch of them. And I think later it may have been on Sirius XM, and I didn't really listen to them then back in the day when I subscribed. But
Yeah.
um, how about
Well,
yourself?
I certainly bought the cassette tapes because I
Okay.
was I was a big fan. I got the bug because I remember first hearing the radio dramas, and also there were some good comedies too, like Jack Benny,
Yeah.
on AM radio, and
Mm-hmm.
then also some public radio
Mm-hmm.
on FM stations were carrying radio dramas at specific times, and they were a lot of fun. And it was also fun to kind of feel like you were having the same experience as people
Sure.
decades before,
Sure.
huddled around the radio at a particular time to hear the thrilling adventures of Captain Marvel or the Shadow or whomever. The Shadow was my personal favorite, but
Mm-hmm.
like also like shows like Suspense had great actors on them. So it
Mm-hmm. Oh
had
yeah.
like
No, no.
Vincent Price and Cary
Sure.
Grant and uh, Joan Crawford, and anyway, just a terrific talent pool that they drew on to cast on these shows. So that brings us then to the real subject of today's episode, the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Now, sometimes we just kind of jump straight to what was it like to first see this, but did you have any inkling that this movie was coming out before it appeared in theaters?
So I was trying to think about this. I mean, I only vaguely remember the following things. I remember that it was George Lucas. So this is after Star Wars.
Right?
So that was an appeal. And then uh, Harrison Ford, Han Solo.
Yes.
That was the two big things I think that I knew going into this.
Yeah. Yeah, I also knew that Lucas, Ford, and Spielberg were
Right.
all people I had enjoyed. And so it seemed kind of amazing to hear that they were doing a movie together. But I don't remember a lot of pre-release publicity. I remember
I,
seeing a poster, but
sure.
that was about it.
I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, I was aware that Spielberg was involved too. I don't think that it appealed to me at the time as much. This may have been the first movie that I saw that he made.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember timelines, but um, but that combination, I knew that combination was powerful even at that point, right? Because I knew that
Right.
Spielberg had made several very important movies, and then Lucas was. I'll say this, and this partially anticipates a question later, but I think for me in 1981, Lucas's name was more important to me than Spielberg's.
Right.
That would change over time,
Yes.
but that was the case at that moment in time.
So did you have any expectations hearing Spielberg, Lucas behind the scenes,
Yeah,
Harrison
it
Ford in
just
front of the
sounded
camera?
awfully. I mean, again, Harrison Ford. What more did I need to know? Right, that was
Yeah.
enough to appeal to me at the time.
Yeah. And I certainly clued in quickly when I saw the poster into what this movie was going to be, that it was going to be a an homage to the serials, to pulps to old radio drama. It just had that look in the poster. They
Sure.
styled it with the font that they used. Everything about it just looked like the cover of a pulp or a poster that you might have seen for a cereal, or it's just blazingly obvious where they were coming from
Yeah.
with this
I mean,
movie.
I didn't understand that at the time. I was instructed of that by all the press about it,
Well,
right?
because I was a weirdo
Well, you were also a
who
few years
bought
older than I
cassette
was
tapes of old
of the
radio
Shadow.
drama and
And also your
yeah,
family had a bookstore. But I mean, so
yeah,
but yeah, the
and
I
sat
just
through all the Flash Gordon serials.
yes, exactly. So,
Yeah. So where did you see it for the first
oh,
time?
I saw it in the theater. I don't I saw it in the theater. I don't remember which theater. I probably could figure out if I thought about it long enough. But probably I think at the, what they call the thing, the mall in Waco, Texas. The something it used to be called the something fashion mall. Now I'm blanking what it was called.
It was an era of fashion malls, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, yes,
Like
it was.
Fashion Island and Newport
Yeah,
Beach,
yeah,
where I
exactly.
saw a lot of movies in the 80s premiere for the first time. I certainly saw it in the theaters. I think it was in Orange, California that I saw it on premiere. There were some big screen venues at this one particular theater. Anyway, and it was blown away. Just
Right,
absolutely amazed
right.
by the movie from start to finish. Just
It's a great movie.
incredible. Yeah. So what letter grade, Professor Taylor, would you give
Mm.
this movie overall?
I'm gonna give this movie a solid A overall.
Yeah, I would even go further. I'd say an A
I'm
plus.
I'm tempted to give it an A plus, but
If
I
any,
get
if
sting
any,
I get stingy at the upper ends.
if any movie deserves an A plus, I think this one does. I maybe 2001.
Oh, the ones we've watched?
It just in general, like if you're going to give an A plus to a movie,
Casablanca. I don't know.
Casablanca would be one. Yeah, that's my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah,
So
well, there you go. I mean,
yeah,
it's an AA plus. I agree. I mean, I always get honestly, it's partially just dispositional. I get really hard at the very, very top end of the scale.
well, when you're
I mean,
excited to watch something
and a
again that you've
4.0 is a
seen,
4.0, regardless of whether it's a plus or not, right?
yeah, it's true. So if you're excited to see something that you've seen 10 times,
Yeah, yeah.
15 times before, which I certainly feel about Casablanca and I also feel about this. Like when you said, how can we not have put Raiders on the schedule?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
I
That
said,
was
"Oh."
I don't know how
And
he missed that.
yeah, I said, "Oh." And then I said, "Oh." I get to watch it again.
So
Fantastic.
I'm just trying to plumb the depths of your grading scale. Is Wrath of Khan an A plus?
I have to think about that. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
it's an it's an A. I don't know if it's an A plus. It's
I
not
know
a
I tend to agree, but I mean, I'm just using your rewatchability standard because that's the movie I would rewatch more than any other movie and have.
Yeah,
I'm not
that's
sure it's
true.
an A plus
Same
anyway.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah, if I play back scenes of it
yeah,
constantly
yeah, yeah.
on YouTube. All right, so
It's
let's.
in that rarefied air. It's up there. I
It's
mean,
definitely
is
up
it a
there.
95 or a 98? I
And
don't
I'll
know.
just say, in real life, when we had the opportunity to grade creations,
Hmm.
if that's what you want to call student papers, we're pretty hard graders, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, how would you grade the writing? So the script writer here is Lawrence Kasdan, who's famous
Hmm.
for Empire Strikes Back, The
Hmm.
Big Chill, Body
Hmm.
Heat, lots of other movies. What grade would you assign
I
to
gave it
this?
an A. I gave it
Yeah,
an A.
definitely an A.
It's a great script.
Definitely an A. Yeah, it's an amazing script.
Great
It's
dialogue. It sings along. It doesn't really lag. And it's exciting.
yeah. And I would say, like on a scale of 1 to 10 for quotability, you just like, because this is an era of very quotable
Yeah, sure,
movies.
sure.
And I think this was certainly one of the earliest ones, that then kind of stretch on through the 80s, lots of
Right.
quotable movies then. But for a script writer to be able to create lines that
Hmm.
the come out of the character's mouth and then come out of your mouth and your friends'
Hmm.
mouths over and
Right.
over again. This is a 9 or a 10.
So I gave it an 8 because I started to think
You gave
about
it an
really what
eight?
the. Well, you can talk me out of it. I was trying to think what are the quotes though that I really remember, and the ones that I really remember are snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
Yeah.
Um,
We are very much alike, you and I.
So that one didn't really stick in my mind.
Oh, it did for
The other one
me.
was
Because it's so
the
overused after this,
sure
right? Like
that
every
may be
villain has to
that
say
may be
this at
true.
some point.
That may be true.
Yeah.
Um, I the one that my friend and I used to always quote was shoot them both."
Yes.
I don't know why that one always stuck in my head.
Asps, very dangerous.
Yes, you
You
go
go
first.
first.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
So maybe like comedies were quotable, like Airplane certainly
Yeah,
had,
yeah,
and
yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of quotable lines, or Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
So Monty Python's a 10, right? That's
Yeah.
got to be a 10.
Okay, so this isn't a 10. This isn't a 10 compared to Monty Python and the Holy
So
Grail.
I
So I
can be
go an 8
talked
or 9.
into 8 or 9,
Yeah.
somewhere in that range. I mean, because
Yeah.
it's a lot of them. I mean, well, it's hard to work into a conversation. Snakes, why did it have to be snakes? In ways that some other quotes can be inserted
True.
into conversation. I don't
You,
know.
you didn't do that at faculty meetings? You didn't say snakes?
Well,
Why does it have to be
that's after
snakes?
I came back from across the quad, having talked to the upper administration. I might tell my chairs that. But yeah,
All
okay.
right. How about directing?
I'm going to give that's the I think this is in some ways the highest. I think it's an AA plus. I think that watching this movie, I just really was impressed by the direction, the blocking, a lot of the scene shots. You know, I put some in the
Hmm.
in the notes. I'm a sucker for any use of really creative uses of light. I love silhouettes. I love contrast and also just in general, just the various scenes like the one where Marion's in the bar and it's a wide shot and you get the silhouette of
Hmm.
the shadow of India. It's just a really well thought out.
Oh, that was beautiful. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm glad you mentioned that because I was certainly going to cite that. That is a wonderful shot.
and you throw in all the action scenes are incredible and the filming of well the whole thing. It's a really really well filmed movie.
Well, that
It
shot is not, and it's not only cool looking.
yeah
It's saying something. Like there's a
yeah
shadow between
yeah
them
that's right
of their
that's right
past relationship.
absolutely
Or all the things with movement in this movie. That like for
yes
example, like when the big swordsman shows up and the crowd parts.
yeah yeah yeah
And then cuts are meaningful, like you get to see
yes
him play with the sword and so forth, and
yes
then you cut back to like you have enough time to think what's going to happen,
right
what's Indy going to do, and then he just like casually pulls out the gun.
yeah yeah
I mean,
well
just
I mean
the movement, not just of the actors, but also
mhm,
like from shot to shot, is
yeah.
just so fluid and so effective.
Just in the
Wonderful.
beginning, the movie starts with that fade in from the logo to the mountain,
Right.
which
Hmm.
just visually grabs you, and then just the way the camera works in that first scene, and that first scene is fantastic. It just goes and it goes and it goes.
All right. How about acting? We'll go through the individual actors. Harrison Ford.
I give him an A.
Yeah, absolutely an A. And
Yeah,
he's playing somebody, it reminds me a lot of from an earlier age, a Humphrey Bogart
sure.
or a Cary Grant, in that
Hmm.
the, he has vulnerability.
Yeah, he does.
He's not a Superman.
Right.
He's not an Ubermensch.
Sometimes, but not always.
And it's not just that like he gets hurt and he's
Right.
in pain, which is something that you rarely see in action movies, but also like he has sort of like a little bit of a goofy side.
He does.
He'll talk sometimes in like a little bit of a high voice, like it's
Yeah,
dates, you eat them.
that's right. That's true. I mean, the only thing that happened, we can talk about this more in a minute. There are times when he seems Han Solo-ish, but I'm not sure how much of that's just Harrison Ford bleeding into both characters. But and this character does have certain elements that are similar,
Yes.
right? When
Oh,
he says
definitely.
I'm making it up as I go along or whatever he says at one point, that just feels like, you know,
Hmm.
very Empire Strikes Backy. Of course, Kasdan wrote both movies too, so there's that.
Yes, exactly. But I mean, he certainly had a persona and he ran with it in both
Yes,
roles.
agreed.
How about Karen Allen?
I gave her an A minus.
Yeah, I would give her a B plus.
That's fair.
I really like her performance, and
Yes,
I guess one of the other people considered for the role was Margot Kidder,
I can see that. Yeah.
and yeah, and they're very similar, not just in appearance, but in other ways too. And I never really loved Margot Kidder, but I really like Karen
I
Allen.
think that's fair. I will say this, and this may have somewhat not the spoilers for next episode, but I did my grades after I had watched Temple of Doom, and Karen Allen compares quite favorably, in my opinion, to Kate Capshaw's character in the next film. So that may be why I bumped her grade up a little bit, despite my well-known
Oh, how much
negativity.
foreshadowing do I want to do of that episode?
It's Mr. Negative will be arriving shortly.
Ah, yes, yes, he will become fully manifest. I thought that she really pulled off the the tough girlfriend
Yeah,
without overplaying it, without it seeming, like it's a butt of a joke, on the part
right.
of the filmmaker. It was just, she just really hit it. So maybe an A minus for her. I don't know.
Yeah,
All right, John Rhys Davies,
I give him an A minus.
Sala.
He's
Yeah,
just
A minus.
great.
He's just great. He's so watchable.
It's so watchable. Now,
Yeah.
what I thought of, and I don't know if you saw I probably didn't see the note that I wrote. What I decided I needed at some point is some kind of like Brian Blessed versus John Rhys Davies contest.
Oh, that's an excellent idea.
It's just they're both so big. I think Brian Blessed wins on bigness, but there's a certain kind of charm about the way they both just
Well,
blast out
yeah,
of the screen.
John Rhys Davies as Solo, right?
Yeah, yeah, in
Oh,
particular.
so happy to meet you. As am I.
Yeah, exactly.
And I love the touch that he is an Egyptian, but he's really into Gilbert and
Gilbert
Sullivan.
and Sullivan. Right.
Yeah.
It's good. Yeah, it's good.
Very endearing. Denholm Elliott as
I
Brody.
gave him a B just because I feel like somebody had to get a B.
Yeah,
He's
a
fine,
B.
right? He's
Yeah,
fine.
he plays off Indy really well in scenes.
What is his role? What is his actual
I
title?
thought he was like he was like the head of the department or dean or
There was
something.
something with the museum. Of course, as
Yeah.
usual, and this is when I'm going to get off on my. Maybe it's why I took the plus off. I mean, there's certain things about the academic part of this that kind of drives me. In my old age, it drives me crazy.
Yeah. Well, there was an
Sorry.
archaeologist at the time who said this is the worst thing that happened to archaeology.
Oh no, that's part of
Yeah.
this. This is affected
Everybody
my
came
view.
into the field expecting it to be Indiana Jones, but
I had a colleague who was he was an anthropologist and archaeologist, and he just does not care for this film. And then watching them do their work versus this has definitely colored part of my view.
well, it doesn't matter what your job is.
Oh, of course.
What your calling in life is. When Hollywood depicts it,
Oh, yeah,
you're going to be
it's-
disappointed in it.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I can accept that. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And I thought they wanted to kind of give a glimpse into the university without it taking up too much time. Like,
Right,
let's keep
right.
moving. Let's not get
Well,
into academic politics or how
sure. No, that would
the
have
findings were turned into
Raiders of the
something they
Lost faculty
display.
meeting.
Yes, or budget concerns that were solved by finding an idol in the jungle and putting it on
That I didn't need to
display.
do that. I guess in some ways I
Yeah.
know what they wanted to do. That to digress too much from this grading of actors, I think that they clearly wanted to give, as was often the case with these kinds of characters, this sort of knowledge-based patina. Right? He's Dr. Jones,
Mhm.
not just Adventurer Jones, and I can respect
Yes.
that. But it does create a couple of, again, in my old age, a couple of questions in my mind. We'll come back
Yes.
to that.
Okay. All right. How about Paul Freeman as Belloc?
I think I give him an A.
I gave him an A. Yeah. So he's not overplaying it, either
No.
his Frenchness or being the villain. I know a lot of this is the writing, but of
Yes.
course it's how much the actor is able to pull off what's written on the page and make it seem like a real person.
Yes.
It's somebody who's not, who's sinister. He's not malicious. He's just a person who has fallen from the light as an
Yeah,
archaeologist.
he's unethical. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I thought he did a great job at conveying that in the role. Ronald Lacey is Tote.
I gave him an A.
Yeah, a real surprising performance. I remember when I saw this for the first time, I was like, "Where did this guy come from? He's so good as
He came
this
from
villain."
Blake 7. I kept thinking about it. And then you need to go back and look at the photos, right? Because again, to remind everyone, he plays an episode of Blake 7 in series 2.
Yeah, yep, I remember.
Character of the week. He's the president in Buckaroo Banzai.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
And he's this guy. It's just crazy.
And he's scary without saying a word practically.
Yeah.
When he shows up. When he does talk, he has that kind of interesting sort of like little bit of halt in his voice, like
Yes.
Fraulein.
Yeah.
What
Well,
shall we talk about?
I mean, I always love this from the beginning. The scene with the coat hanger.
Yeah.
It's just
Oh yeah,
fantastic.
perfect. It's
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah.
But he's got that. He's the kind of Nazi. I don't know if what predates him or if it comes after him. This
Hmm.
is because again, I saw this when I was 12. He's the nerdy, dangerous Nazi. You know what I mean? He's not like
Yes.
the hulking Ubermensch type. He's
No,
not
he's
the
Himmler.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah. Or if you
exactly.
want to compare to an actor, he's Peter Lorre.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or he's Stephen Miller. I'm sorry, did I say that out loud?
Moving on.
Anyway,
How about Wolf or Wolf Collar
I,
as
only because I had
Dieter?
it a grade. Somebody's like as a B minus. He's just fine.
He's okay. Yes.
He's fine as the sort of muscle-headed Nazi guy.
Yeah. He doesn't have much of a role to play,
No, no,
really. No.
no. He's just necessary.
He's is often surprised by what other people are doing. So
Yes.
Belloc sees the dig going on,
Yeah, yeah.
and
He's
he's
over there
just,
drinking.
what?
Yeah.
What? Yeah. So this is, I think, for me at least, a difficult question. Is there anybody
God.
you would recast?
The only one I would Dietrich just to pick on somebody, but no, I don't really have any need to recast anybody.
No, no. And,
Oh, hot
famously,
take, hot take. It shouldn't have been Harrison Ford. No, I'm kidding.
I mean,
Should have been Tom Selleck.
well, that's it. I mean, Tom Selleck almost was Indiana Jones,
I know.
and
Which
I'm
is just
glad it wasn't him.
the alternate
He would have
universe
been
where Tom Selleck.
fine, but
Yeah,
he
they're
wouldn't have
fine.
been great.
No, I don't think so. No.
Yeah. And I enjoyed Magnum PI, so I'm glad he did
Sure,
that.
Magnum's fine.
Yeah. Does anybody watch Blue Bloods?
I think my parents or in-laws or both did, maybe, but that's as far as it goes.
Yeah. Anyway, Tom Selleck would not have been as good. So
No,
yeah,
no,
I'm glad history
he
took that
doesn't.
particular
Yeah,
branch.
in an alternate universe where what's his name was still in Back to the Future. I'm see his face. I'm blanking now.
Are you talking about Michael J. Fox's
Eric
character?
Stoltz. Eric
Oh,
Stoltz
Eric Stoltz. Yes.
reminds that remains in that movie, and Tom Selleck is
Yeah.
Indiana Jones.
There you go. All right. Some of the filmmaking uh, categories: editing. Probably should have put this right after directing, but so this was Michael Kahn. There's really like an A list of talent
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
from the United States and Britain who worked on this movie. I gave it an A. It's a
No, I think it is
yeah.
right. The editing's great.
Yeah, I mean it's a movie where I watch it, and not only I mentioned before, like things cut at the right moment.
Hmm.
Like for example, to make that scene with the sword guy and when Indy shoots him
Hmm.
funny. I mean, there's a
Yes,
timing element to that,
sure
but
there is.
also it's just spare. It's just
Yeah,
like
it is.
nothing takes too long to
I
establish
agree. Yeah.
when you're picking out a particular scene. Um, Cinematography. So this
Oh,
was
I give it an A
Doug
plus.
Slocum. Yeah,
I
A
give it an A
plus.
plus.
Yeah. Again, I mean, really a fantastic talent, in working on this movie. Doug Slocum was director of photography, who also worked on the next two Indiana Jones
Hmm.
movies. Soundtrack. Okay, we all know what we're going to give the soundtrack.
A plus
A
plus.
plus plus plus. Was this John Williams' best
So
soundtrack?
I thought about this, and I would have to think about it further. I think if I had to pick his best soundtrack,
Hmm.
it's Empire Strikes Back.
It's a hard
Because
choice.
I'll make the list though. It's the music in the asteroid scene,
Hmm.
the Imperial Death March, Yoda's theme. Those are really, really important songs in setting the tone of the movie. But you can make the argument. This is up there. I don't know if it's the best. It's hard to pick the best when you're talking about John Williams. But
Hmm.
it's top five regardless. It may be top three regardless. Maybe it's number one, but it's quite good.
Okay,
But I think Empire's better actually.
I'm convinced by that. I think so too. I mean, I think Star Wars also has some very
Oh,
distinctive
it does.
musical lines in it, the make it important. But I think for the theme itself, just the main theme,
Hmm. Oh, the main thing's great.
yeah, I think the main
Becomes
theme
very
maybe it's
difficult.
my favorite of his
But
themes.
the funny thing is, and I
Mhm.
always strikes me every time I watch this movie, the main theme is not the main theme in the sense that it is not played at the top of the movie in its entirety. In fact, the Raiders marched. I forget. I was trying to think about it right before we recorded, and I had to look at the list again. When I guess the first time we hear the Raiders theme is maybe when the Raiders march is when the plane flies away. I think. But
I
when
don't recall. Right.
Jake Jock is a snake in the plane. That's my pet snake, Reggie, and I think that's somewhere in there.
Well, over the ending credits.
Yeah, but that's my point though. That's kind of weird, really, when you think about Star Wars, Superman, E.T. All they have the theme is up top, and it's over the credits, and that doesn't happen in this movie. In fact, I don't think you get the full Raiders theme until I was looking at the soundtracks. Because Temple of Doom actually same deal. It's the end credit, and it's in some ways the more pure version of the theme is not until the second movie in that sense as a track. Like if you just want to sit down and listen to the Raiders theme, that's the one you want to listen to, I think.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting that one.
I certainly ran to buy the album.
Oh, yeah, I had the album, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. All right, next up, we're kind of rounding out the various technical aspects of the movie. The special effects. What grade would you give that?
I'm gonna give that one an A minus, and only because again I'm trying to find ways to ding this movie. Maybe it's not fair. The scene, it's taken me out every time I've seen it, maybe even the first time. When they're on top of the Well of Souls and the storm is happening in the background, it always just takes me out. Just takes me out. I'd rather just
it looks a little fake.
It looks very fake to me. But otherwise, I mean, the effects are great. They're mostly, they're mostly practical. They're all practical, except for stuff like that. It's really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the one that seems a little fake is in the map room with the light shining.
That's also true.
Yeah,
that's true. Whether it actually do that
takes me out a little bit.
And the mummy scene always takes me out a little bit too. It seems a bit over the top.
Right.
When Marion gets in the middle of all the corpses and stuff, it just almost feels like, how did this happen? I don't totally understand.
But there's so many other amazing things that they did with
so many
with practical effects.
Oh, yeah.
I just incredible. The Well of Souls with all the snakes. People will say famously, "Oh, did you know that some of them were rubber hoses?" Like, who cares? Who cares? It looked like snakes. It looked like he landed right in front of a cobra, which raised its hood.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I think, as I recall, I don't know where I saw this. Like this, apparently he is in front of the cobra. There's plexiglass between him and the cobra.
Oh, yeah, but you can't see it.
No, you can't see it.
I was looking for any sign of it, like when
I was too.
Yeah, when the camera, we saw the shot from from his back over his shoulder. You could see him and the cobra next to each other. Yeah. I mean, it's not very long, but you can't detect that there is a piece of plexiglass there.
Cannot. That's well done. Yeah.
Yeah, and also the face melting.
Oh, the face melting is great, yeah, and I do like it's digital. I don't know if it's digital effects. It's some kind of animation with the basically the wrath of God and the lid of the ark spinning up into space and coming back down. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I thought the ghosts were fine. I mean, I was listening to another podcast where they were saying they were kind of hinky, but I thought they were fine.
They felt very standard to the era in some ways.
Yeah. Yeah, they looked like a Disney movie sort of kind of animation, which was fine. Yes. What amused me was like one of the behind the scenes stories about the special effects. I guess the face melting so impressed other people in special effects that they asked for the secret of how to do it, and which made me wonder how many other movies featured people's faces melting off their skulls. That you'd really want to learn the secret.
Secrets.
It's not like, like one magician asking another magician, how did you do that close-up card trick?
Right, that's right. Well, you never know when it comes in handy.
Yeah, somebody's face will melt. In Gandhi, they certainly needed that, or Chariots of Fire, or other later movies. And then sound. What would you give the sound?
I just solid A minus. It's great. It sounds great.
Yeah, and just wonderful. You don't miss any dialogue over the fact that they're playing the soundtrack a lot. There's a lot of incidental noise from cars, trucks, crowds of people, and so forth. Anyway, just good. All right. What makes Indiana Jones a great hero?
So, for me, I think, which fits into a larger paradigm for me, I think I do like the fact that he is knowledgeable. It's part of his superpower is knowing things, and But I'll stick with that. Well, you're going to say something because I'm rather than try to step on that.
Yeah, I mean, I've already said it, which is humanity. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that he not just is a humane person,
Hmm.
but he's also a person with human vulnerabilities.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I think that that made him endearing to me from, the first time I saw this.
Yeah.
That
He's
he
clever.
could get hurt. He's clever.
I guess really what it boils down, right? He has a certain amount. It's probably just Harrison Ford, but I mean, that's partially why I don't know how this movie would work with Tom Selleck. Although Tom Selleck has charisma too, but Ford
Yeah.
has a certain kind of understated, rugged charisma that really fits this kind of character, right?
Yes.
He has a way of delivering dialogue that really fits this kind of character. The words they put in his mouth are good and interesting and clever. He's a problem solver. I always like problem solving, knowledge based heroes, right? The
Yes.
Doctor, Batman, Sherlock Holmes. These are things that appeal to me.
Hmm.
And then you throw in a little bit of the extra action, and it's just exciting. And he's fighting Nazis. Who doesn't like a Nazi fighter?
Yeah. Well, and I think the humanity for one of the scenes people don't talk about that much, but where he and Marion are on the ship,
Uh-huh.
and he says it hurts here,
Right,
and
right,
then
right,
she kisses it, and then it hurts
right. Yeah.
here. If he had not had a vulnerable side to him that we had
Hmm.
seen already, I don't think that scene would have worked. If he had been some sort of slab of meat, a
Right,
Schwarzenegger,
right, 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 right.
Stallone sort of Superman kind of character, that scene could not have been possible
No,
at all.
you already believed he was in pain before that. It wasn't
Oh
like he
yeah.
was just yeah. So that definitely I agree.
Oh yeah, when like the German sergeant is punching him where he's been
Oh
shot in
yeah,
the
yeah.
arm. Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder how much of his experience doing stunts and having been injured doing them
Mm,
made that acting more credible.
that's a fair question. I think you're probably right.
How would you rate the villains in this movie?
I think the villains are convincing and they're good villains. They're hateable in the
Right.
right kind of way.
And there's a troop of them with different interests.
That's right.
Yeah, there isn't one master villain. There isn't a final boss. It
Right.
is an alliance of villains I found very credible and interesting.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
they're Nazis. I mean, of course,
Well, exactly. Yeah.
always the best
It,
villains are
it
Nazis.
never did not strike me when I watched it the first time, but it struck me this time about the sort of the whole Vichiness of Belloc,
Oh yeah, yeah.
which just I didn't know what I was looking at the time, but yeah, I did. And I also enjoyed, along those lines, though, that fits into this conversation. I think it was Ebert's second review of the movie
Hmm.
where he talks about Spielberg's Jewishness and the way in which the sort of a lot of like the how the Nazis are cast against certain sort of the Jewish things they were trying to both denigrate, but then got back at them, right? Right.
Yes.
Through the film. And
Hmm.
the fact that it was the Jewish God and the Jewish Ark of the Covenant and the Jewish ritual that melted their faces, right?
Right.
All that kind of stuff I thought creates another sort of layer that I didn't think about in 1981.
Yeah. So this movie has a lot of humor.
It does.
It's genuinely laugh out loud moments in an action movie where we're again kind of not thrown out of the action scenes by the humor.
Hmm.
It seems kind of organic. How would you characterize the use of incidental humor, and
No,
why does it work?
I think part of it's just the cleverness. It's the writing. It's also being built into the characters, but it also kind of breaks some of the tension, right? Another quotable
Hmm.
line. It's not really a line; it's a word. In the bar fight, when the Nazi has Indy onto the bar, the thug
Yeah.
has Indy on the bar, and he says to Marion, "Whiskey," and she gives him
Yes.
the bottle and whacks the guy on the head. It's like it breaks some of. This is a very intense fight. It's a very intense fight, but that
Yeah.
kind of thing kind of makes it well, I guess it tells the audience it's all going to be okay in some sort of sense, but it's also just it is an interesting contrast with the tension, and those kinds of things come up all the time. Again, it's like snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
Right.
Or ass very dangerous. You go first. This is all.
Hmm.
They're not jokes really, right? But they
No, they're
are
not.
amusing. They're funny. They're quippy, and they fit into the characters.
Yeah, it's not condescending. I mean, it
No, it's
seems
not.
like it organically comes out of the moment. It's
Right.
not like when the MCU does too much humor and it's
Hmm.
too kind of sneering a little bit at times. or snarky a little bit too much. It's never snarky in this movie.
Yeah, you're again another tenet of the Tom religion is anti-snark. Thou
I
shalt
am
not be
anti-snark.
snarky.
Do not snark. Even though I'm occasionally snarky. I admit that.
That's your
But
sins.
only I can wield it for good. But it's kind of like that, like you're playing a role-playing game and something unexpected happens and it's
Hmm.
unexpectedly
Hmm.
funny. There are
Yes.
just moments like that in
Yes.
this movie. So, is this more of a Spielberg movie or more of a Lucas movie?
This is a great question, and I don't know that I have a good answer. I think objectively, to some degree, you have to say it's more of a Lucas movie because it was his idea and he co-wrote the script, right? Or at least the story for
Hmm.
the script.
Okay.
Although I guess there's also the fact that Spielberg, I think, had some uncredited rewrites on the script, and of course, the direction clearly drives this movie. I
Yes.
think that here's the maybe this is the best answer that I can give, and it's not a
Hmm.
very scientific one. I half forgot when we started to do this. I had half forgotten that it was a Lucas originated idea.
Yes.
And in my mind, it was a Spielberg movie. So
Hmm.
whatever that tells you, that's kind of how I look at it. And I don't have a good answer beyond the fact that it just in some ways feels more Spielbergy. Maybe because also, let's face facts, Lucas's track record after Star Wars is not as great as Spielberg's
Right.
track record.
Right.
So maybe I'm giving more credit than is deserved. But how is it? What do you think about it
I
in
think
that
it's
regard?
I think it's certainly in concept more of a Lucas movie, as you said,
Hmm.
and in execution, certainly more of a Spielberg movie.
Okay.
And not just because he's director. I think that, I mean, the two of them,
The tone,
the boundaries of their collaboration are not totally clear. But
right?
you're right, the tone, right? Which of course there's like the incidental humor in Star Wars that's very reminiscent of
But
this, and but anyway, it just feels more like a Spielberg
I
movie
can't put my
to me.
finger on it, but it feels more, I don't know, of the universe of just a Spielbergian kind of setting. I don't know. If I thought maybe I should have thought about this more, but it just feels a little bit more tonally Spielbergian than
Yeah.
Lucasian.
So where would you rank this among Spielberg's movies?
That's boy, I also a tough one. I think it ranked in my personal pantheon. It ranks up to the very top. It may be my favorite
Hmm.
movie to direct it, to be honest. But
Yeah.
he's got such a body of work. It would be a chore to sort of try to figure out exactly how it should rank. But it's really it's way up there for me.
Yeah, I can't really say. I mean, I would certainly gush more about Close Encounters of the Third Kind if you gave me a chance.
We
Schindler's
already
List
had a
is
chance. We did a
amazing.
whole episode about it,
I
Tom.
know, but I'm saying I could do it again. Yes, I just at a moment's notice.
Yes.
Jurassic Park, it's
Mm.
really hard. It's really hard.
Yeah, for me, this is definitely above those movies for me. And
Oh,
then really, if
interesting.
the more I think about it, I mean, again, he has a very deep catalog, but I definitely put this movie above Close Encounters and above
1941.
it's definitely above
Which
19.
I did see when it came out, and
I
it
did
was
too.
terrible. It
I
was
did too.
terrible.
Actually,
Yeah,
I take back what I said a minute ago. I think I said this was the first Spielberg movie I think 1941 was the first Spielberg movie that I saw
that's
in the
that's
theater.
tragic.
I
That's
didn't
really
know that it
tragic.
was at the time. This John Belushi movie, and that's all it was to me at the time. But yep. Oh well.
Yep. How would you rank this among Lucas movies?
It's number two after Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, it
I mean,
maybe
there's
even
nothing
number
gonna come.
one.
It
Yeah,
could
so that's
be.
another tough one.
Yeah, I think I had to put. I mean, and I'm in this way now. I'm adding into my calculation this overall significance, and not just because maybe Raiders is a better movie than Star Wars. Like, you can make that. I can make that argument, but I think in terms of its overall impact in my life and pop culture, I have to put Star Wars ahead. But it's hard to say. But it's
Yeah, I
certainly
mean,
far and
but if
away
you
better than anything else.
yeah, if you play one of these, if not for blank, you wouldn't have blank games.
Right.
And I think certainly without Star Wars, you wouldn't have this movie. I
Well,
think
that's
that's less true of Spielberg's early catalog. Like
yeah,
without
yeah,
Sugarland Express or Duel.
yeah,
Well, I would say Close Encounters or Jaws.
yeah. I mean, he was already
Maybe Jaws, but hard to. It's the dependency is not as strong, I think, as between Star Wars and Raiders.
yeah. Well, without Star Wars, we are gonna have Howard the Duck.
Well, We'll have more to say about George Lucas in the next episode. We will
Yeah.
talk about Howard the Duck, won't we? All right. What did you notice most during this rewatch? We've both seen this movie plenty of times. We've seen other
Yeah.
movies and noticed things on the most recent rewatch. What was
The thing that I
outstanding?
notice the most, and
Hmm.
this is very specific, maybe to me and to where I am in my life right now, it was the visuals. I mean, it wasn't like I hadn't noticed them before,
Yeah.
but again, photography's become a really important hobby for me, and I think a lot more about this than I ever did in the past. And some of the scenes, just the use of lighting, the use of blocking, the way some of these scenes are set, just really leapt out at me in ways that they hadn't. Some that I noticed, obviously, but they really leapt at me this time. Like I'll give a simple example without getting into a whole lot of detail. Because some reason, again, the part of why I got into the map room scene, it's the look on Indy's face and the way in which he films it that
Hmm.
really struck me this time. Because I used to focus more on the staff and the laser beam and all that kind of stuff, but it was his reaction to the whole thing that
Yeah.
really struck me. But I also just, various scenes that showed up that I just loved. Like when he leaves the bar and he turns back to look at her and the light just hits his eye and he's
Right.
otherwise in the silhouette. It's just really, really amazingly well done. And that's what struck me this time more than anything else.
Yeah, I would say the same. The attention to detail
Yeah.
in the visuals, especially, but also in other aspects of the movie that didn't have to be there necessarily,
Right.
like the Nazi flying wing. It
Yeah.
could have just been a plane, but
Sure.
they wanted to throw in that little nugget for people who had some knowledge of the Nazis and the fact that the Germans were playing around with these flying wing designs. That was just like those details just
For all the
really make
plane
the
weirdos
movie
out there.
all the all the Nazi plane weirdos.
Oh, jeez. Well,
Uh,
it's not. Yeah.
which I am not. I am not. Uh,
That was not an accusation.
Yeah, I'm always struck by the pacing.
The pacing is correct. Yeah.
You need to have quiet moments along with the
Hmm.
action scenes, and I think this is about perfect in that mix.
Sure.
And I also thought that treating the audience as intelligent, you can fill in the
Yeah.
blanks on
Yeah.
things.
Sure. Sure. Sure.
I always appreciate that in this and any movie. So let's say some tyrant decreed that you could only see three scenes from this movie
You,
forevermore.
you mean you?
Me, yes, I'm, and you can't be snarky. That's my other
Uh,
decree, my other diktat. So three scenes from this movie, the only things you'll ever see from this movie ever again. Which three would you pick?
so I think well, the first scene is just too fantastic not to put on the list.
Absolutely,
And
same here.
I think we mostly agree on this. I took one deviation. The Nepal scene is great. The whole
Yes,
thing from start to finish. I'll go with the Well of Souls scene, but it's hard to, you can pick a bunch of things.
yeah. So we're in agreement on the first two, definitely.
Yeah.
The first scene is probably the best first scene ever in a movie.
That's fair.
I would say. I mean, I'm full of hyperbole today, but
Hmm.
I don't know what else would really exceed what they accomplished in this first scene.
Right.
And I think Nepal is great, not just as an exciting scene in which you know exactly what's happening. It could have been really confusing, and a lot of fight scenes in movies
Yeah.
are confusing. Here, you know exactly what's going on, where everybody
Right.
is, uh, what's the important focus for any particular action that somebody's taken. Uh, but also too, by 15 minutes into this movie, with this and the university
Hmm.
and the first scene, they've established everything.
Right.
You know who Indiana Jones is, you know who the villains are, you know what the stakes are. Fantastic. Just the whole setup by that point. And then I picked the truck fight and the
Yeah.
chase,
Sure. Yeah.
which I'm not going to extend it all the way back to the fight scene with the giant Nazi,
Right.
the fist fight and so forth, but just the scene where he shows up on the white horse and from that point forward,
Yes.
amazing, just
Yeah.
amazing.
It is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. An intentionally hard question. What was the
Yes.
worst scene in this great
Gosh.
movie?
So It's really hard to pick anything that really qualifies. Three things come to mind, but none of them are really that bad. Um, if I had, and this is forcing me to pick in no particular order, well, maybe a slightly particular order. I can maybe the baskets when he's in there. The basket scene's okay. The mummy scene, I think it feels a little much. Again, it just
Hmm.
I don't know. It feels almost a little forced. Maybe that's the one I would pick. And then something maybe we haven't talked about yet, which is I was a child and what that may or may not have meant.
Yeah.
That that's one of my sticking points. Actually, I'll add another one because I mentioned this earlier. We haven't gotten back to it. Indy doesn't treat his hired help very well in the first scene. That's the one thing I have
No.
a little bit of a. What does he do with his TAs, man?
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll come back to that in a second, I think. But go ahead.
Yeah, I think, I was a child. That would be my pick too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So this movie comes out. It's a huge success.
right.
It shows there's all this fantastic source material from the serials, from the pulps, from old time radio. Other people then try to make a movie like Indiana Jones,
Hmm.
or like Raiders of the Lost Ark. So, Alan Quartermain, with Richard
Hmm.
Chamberlain, The Mummy, Romancing the Stone, Tomb Raider, The Goonies to some extent is sort of a
Yeah, no,
Raiders-esque
that's
movie.
it's yes.
Jumanji. I'm not a fan of these movies. And
Hmm.
maybe there's some of them that this particular list that you love. I'm really surprised at how many underwhelming movies there were, or The Phantom, or
Yeah.
The
I mean,
Shadow, or yeah. Anyway,
yeah.
why
Well,
is the track record not great?
I'm going to give a really annoying answer
Okay,
because it's hard to make a really classic movie.
yeah,
I mean, I think so. I didn't see all these movies. We saw Romancing the Stone in the theater. I was entertained by it, but I don't like. It's not a movie I go back
hmm,
and watch. I thought The Goonies was also entertaining, and I think that's had a longer shelf life in some ways than some of his other movies. Although I haven't watched it
yeah.
again since I saw it in the theater. Jumanji was fine. I didn't see The Mummy. I didn't see Tomb Raider. I didn't see Alan Quartermain. I didn't watch Tales of the Gold Monkey.
Oh, that's right. Oh, that's embarrassing. Oh my God,
Um, I I
that
just
was not a good show.
no, it was not.
No.
And its lead makes it impossible to watch now.
Yes.
The I keep coming back, and I don't have again. It's such a dissatisfactory, obvious thing to say, but I this movie, as we both have already gushed over, right? It is truly a classic, amazing film, right? And
Yes.
we're about to talk about in the next episode, we'll talk about Temple of Doom, and we're not going to like it as much. Exactly how much we're not going to like it, we'll figure out. But that's the same people making this movie on balance, not the same screenwriter.
Right.
So I think it goes to show that even the team, Steven Spielberg, one of the greatest directors of all time, right? I'm not being crazy saying that, didn't make as good a movie the second time. This is hard to capture lightning in a bottle, right? Isn't that what this kind of
Yes.
the problem is? And I think you are right that a lot of this is trying to copy Raiders, which is never a good idea, right? A lot of these films just like try to
Yeah.
copy success. Like there's a
Yeah, but
lot of
they're
Star Wars
also
copies and they're not very good.
yeah. Oh, that's an episode we should do sometime. All
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
movies that came out after Star Wars that were trying to
Yeah.
recapture whatever Star Wars had achieved.
Oh, that sounds like torture having to watch a bunch of bad movies to talk about.
But they're not all bad. They're not all bad.
Yeah,
Battle
fair,
Beyond the
fair.
Stars is fun. I
Yeah.
still enjoy that movie. But I think aside from trying to copy Raiders too explicitly, none of the people I think behind these other movies, and maybe I'm wrong,
Yeah.
but I never got the feel that they were in love with the source material, the
Mm.
serials, the pulps, old time radio drama, the way that Spielberg and Lucas were. I think
That may be
if you
true.
don't love something, I think it's hard to make a great movie
I mean,
based on it.
I didn't, wasn't Alec Baldwin the Shadow?
Yeah.
I didn't, don't think I saw that movie. Maybe I
Well,
did.
and we talked ad nauseum about Flash Gordon in another
Flash Gordon
episode.
I think Flash Gordon was a case of just not, that was a
Well,
lack of
that was a
respect and also a
yeah.
lack of,
They didn't love it.
and also just, but of course, love doesn't conquer all either. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like, I was dishing, excuse me, on Lucas kind of a few minutes ago. I mean, Lucas, for all of his success, and even later, I mean, financially a lot of success, never makes a movie as good as Star Wars. I mean, Empire, yes, but I mean
Yes.
but I mean, Empire, Star Wars, maybe Jedi, but it's just hard. That's, I think, part of what makes Spielberg's career so amazing. He really does have a much longer list, a really deep list of very impressive movies, right?
Hmm.
And it's just hard to find people with this kind of talent. And then being able to execute it. It's just so difficult, right? That clearly is part of the problem. And
And so what you get is just like also then a copy of a copy of a copy
sure,
sort
sure.
of phenomenon that is never healthy. I think Lucas can play a really critical role in Hollywood, as the person who could reach into the deep library of
Hmm.
all these different cultural sources and say, oh, well, you should make a movie about this character that you've never heard of before. Oh, you want a, strong female character in a fantasy story? How about C.L. Moore? Yeah, she wrote a character called Jarell that I think really exemplifies that. I think that, as a resource for that, he could have played a big role in Hollywood. I
Hmm.
don't think that's necessarily the direction that he took. He wanted to make more Star Wars movies and
Hmm.
he wanted to make a Howard the Duck movie and so forth.
Well,
But
I think Luke,
without him, this movie probably would not have been made.
no,
Without Spielberg, I don't think it would have been a success.
I think that's fair. I think that, and I think without any doubt, Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark specifically
Hmm.
are the result of Lucas in particular, having a love for a previous set of cultural artifacts and drawing some of the appropriate pieces out and finding a way
Yes.
to make what he wanted to make. I mean, but the funny thing is, unlike some of the other things we're talking about, they're not actually direct copies or
No.
remakes or whatever, right? So like as we've talked about before, he wanted to do Flash Gordon, but couldn't get the rights, so he made
Hmm.
Star Wars.
Right.
Now, maybe his Flash Gordon would have been as good as Star Wars. I somehow doubt it actually, because then you're constrained by the source material. I mean, and he also draws from a whole bunch, Japanese films and all kinds of stuff. So I mean, yeah, I mean, they both have a talent, and Lucas in particular, he mines some things. And the problem, of course, with other people making other movies is often they're not really even thinking about. They're just trying to find a quick hit, right? Something easy to do, and it's not always
Hmm.
so easy to do, right?
No. All right. So
Um,
as we wrap up here, any other factoids about the movie that you want to bring up? I have one.
Factoids, no. I mean, there were some things I was going to say about the character of Indiana Jones. I think we'll port over into the next episode.
Yeah. So I just wanted to bring up that some of the concept art early on was done by the comic artist Jim Steranko.
Hmm.
And I'm a big Steranko fan
Hmm.
from back when he was drawing Nick Fury and the Agents of Shield. And if
Yes.
you're not familiar with him, go take a look at some of those early Steranko works like Nick Fury, because he's really an exceptional artist. And I think he really conveyed in the concept art the pulp feel. I can't imagine anybody doing better than him
Right.
with that.
No, there's a great article in Slash Film that has a lot of that art
Yeah.
from 2011. If I remember to post when the time comes, I will, but I often forget,
All right. So
given
so
the
once you
time
once
distortion of all this.
yeah, so once you exited the theater, did you expect there to be a sequel?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't know if I consciously thought, hey, but yeah. I mean, yes, there was an assumption. I think, well, obviously, I mean, at its core, I understand the pulp and serial, but he's a superhero, right? And
Right.
superheroes have more than one story to tell.
Yes.
There's more crimes to solve or more adventures to have. So yeah, sure, that seemed absolutely inevitable, right?
Yeah, same here. And I wanted more
Sure.
if it would be as good as Raiders.
Yeah, that's where I always think you're wrong. You always want the sequel to be as good as the original and almost never is. You should temper your expectations.
I'm a fuss budget. What can I say? All right.
But I mean, because again, I mean, what? There's like a handful of movies that the sequel's better. Star Trek, Godfather,
Yeah.
Empire, right? And that's
Mhm.
kind of the three,
Well, I don't need it to be better, and I don't even need it to
or be
be
as good.
100% as good, but
Right.
like 90%
Right.
is good, 80% is good.
That's fair. That's totally fair. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a sliding scale, and it's probably the case that wasn't what happened.
You think? But we'll talk about that more in the next episode.
Yes.
So let's
Yes.
ask our traditional questions to end every episode. What merch did you have at the time?
So at the time, I had the soundtrack on vinyl.
Hmm.
I I not quite the time, but close. I had the comic book that came out from Marvel, especially the one that John Byrne did until he left the book,
Right.
which is quite good until it wasn't. Um, I think that's mostly what I had. I did not have
Yeah.
a. Well, what did you have?
I had the poster, the one
Mm-hmm.
that I was talking about before. There were a couple of different posters. This was the
Mm-hmm.
one with a very yellowish, goldish
Mm-hmm.
colored
Mm-hmm.
one. Anyway, the artist was Richard Amsel. I loved that poster.
It's a good poster.
And later, like years later, I had, I'll just mention Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, the computer game.
I
And,
remember the
and
game. I don't think I
yeah,
had it.
because oddly, there wasn't like a lot of great merch after
No,
the first
no.
movie came out, and it took years for there to be a good computer game. So,
I did have years later and still have a version. I have a hat that's probably kind of Indiana Jones coded, but
mhm.
that's
Yeah,
but
yeah. All right. Is there any merch that you wish you had?
I mean, the jacket's cool. It's pretty resilient too,
Yeah,
because it can withstand being drug under a car. Although
exactly.
how the man didn't pass out in Peru wearing that jacket, I don't understand.
I don't know. He's
I've been in Peru. It's no, forget it, man.
so I have a jacket that, it's a leather bomber jacket. You could kind of
Hmm.
get away with saying it's an Indiana Jones jacket. I would say the hat. I mean, I don't have the
Sure,
hat.
I've got that's great.
Yeah, I do have a fedora that I got. We were doing movie club one night, and it
Hmm.
was it was the big sleep. So I got a trench coat and a fedora. So I would dress a little like Bogart, but I can't say I'm totally in love with this particular fedora, and it's not nearly as good
Hmm.
as
Yeah.
Indy's.
How many brown shirts did he have in his closet? That's what I want to know. It's like that episode of Seinfeld where the girl has the whole, does she wear the same dress every day? Is like the whole
Yes,
closet full of the same dress?
yes. There was a guy. I used to be kind of a regular attendee at Southern California conventions, science fiction
Hmm.
comics, and so forth. Mike Jitlove. Does that name ring a bell?
No.
He did special effects. Like there's like a video clip where he's like the Wizard of Speed and Time, which is kind of fun. Oh, he was like showing off what he could do as a special
Hmm.
effects guy.
Hmm.
Anyway, he said that like he had like 15 copies of the same green windbreaker. It's a trademark, man.
Sure.
Thank God Indiana Jones didn't have a windbreaker. I'm just saying, even in Peru, would not have worked as well.
A members only jacket.
Oh God, that would have been horrible. Oh my God. All right.
And on that note,
Enough of anachronistic 80s fashion. Thanks everybody for listening to another thrilling episode of Ancient Geeks.
it was spicy.
As Stephen and I figure out how to get out of this pit full of snakes, we wanted to thank you one more time for listening to another episode of Ancient Geeks. Please like and subscribe on the podcast app of your choice. And leave us a review if you feel like taking the time. We'd be grateful. You can also contact us directly at someancientgeeks@gmail.com. Look for us where we post daily on Substack at someancientgeek.substack.com. And also, you can find us on Reddit, Facebook, Blue Sky, and other social media outlets. All content is copyright 2026, Tom Grant and Stephen Taylor. Music by Reversed Image, whom you can find on Pixabay. See you next time.
Shoot them. Shoot them both.